You think the world is supposed to be fair, that if you work hard, follow the rules, treat people well, then life, like some cosmic referee, will reward you accordingly. But here's the truth Machiavelli would whisper in your ear. Fairness is a story told to keep you tame, to keep you obedient, to keep you waiting. The moment you start demanding fairness, you reveal something about yourself. Not just that you're disappointed, but that you expected the world to accommodate you. And Machiavelli, ruthless in logic and cold in strategy, would tell you that this expectation alone is weakness. Not because it's wrong to hope for justice, but because it shows a fundamental misunderstanding of power. Power doesn't care about your feelings. It doesn't count your sacrifices. It doesn't hand you a crown because you were patient, kind, or morally upright. In fact, the more tightly you cling to the idea of fairness, the more invisible you become to those who actually shape the world. They don't play fair, they play to win. And if you're still waiting for the referee to blow the whistle, you're not even in the game. Think about the moments in your life where you've been betrayed, overlooked, disrespected. How many times did your instincts say, "That's not fair"? And how many times did saying that change anything? Here's the trap. Fairness creates passivity. It tells you to endure, to wait your turn, to believe that karma, fate, or some higher principle is keeping score, that someday it will all balance out. But Machiavelli would scoff at that. Not because justice is a lie, but because in the realm of strategy, waiting is rarely rewarded. The game favors the one who acts, not the one who complains about the rules. That's why you must be brutally honest with yourself. When you say, "This isn't fair," what are you really doing? You're freezing. You're hesitating. You're handing your momentum over to some imagined system that's supposed to fix the imbalance for you. But there is no system. There is only the struggle. And in that struggle, fairness is a luxury you can't afford. Those who rise, dominate, and bend the world to their will, they don't ask if the odds are against them. They study the terrain. They read their opponent's weaknesses. And then they strike. They understand what Machiavelli meant when he said, "It's better to be feared than loved." Because fear is leverage. Love is conditional. Fear makes people think twice. You don't need to become a villain. But you do need to stop seeking validation from a world that owes you nothing. The moment you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "How can I use this?" that's the moment you begin to operate from power. They use every slight as a strategic tool. Every setback becomes a smokescreen. Every insult, a signal flare marking the emotional weak spot of their opponent. It's not about becoming emotionless. It's about mastering your emotions so deeply that others can't use them against you. That's how the game is really played. Look around the most powerful people in your life. Are they the kindest? The fairest? Or are they the ones who learned how to bend the rules while everyone else was debating them? You have to decide, do you want to be right or do you want to be respected? Because chasing fairness might make you feel morally upright, but it won't make you influential. It won't put you in the room where decisions are made. It won't stop someone less deserving from taking what you thought was yours. And what's worse, fairness can be weaponized against you. The moment people know that you crave it, they'll use that craving to control you. They'll give you crumbs of validation to keep you in line. They'll feed your hope for justice just enough to keep you docile. But they'll never let you touch real power. You're too easy to read when you want fairness. Too easy to disappoint. Too easy to manipulate. But when you want results, when you want control, when you want to shape your world instead of pleading with it, now you're a threat. And being a threat doesn't mean being evil. It means being untouchable. Not because people like you, but because they know you don't play by their illusions. You don't beg for justice. You create leverage. You don't complain about the game. You change your position on the board until the board bends toward you. That's what Machiavelli would teach you if you were ready to stop chasing shadows. He'd look at you and ask, do you want to be safe, or do you want to be sovereign? Because you can't have both. Fairness wants you safe. Power wants you sharp. And sometimes sharp cuts clean through fair. So, let's strip this idea down even further. Fairness at its core is a plea. It's a cry to something outside yourself. Whether that's a boss, a partner, a system, or even the universe. It's saying, I've done what's right, so reward me. But what if no one's listening? What if the world is indifferent? Not malicious, just uninterested? Then what? You're left holding this invisible IOU, waiting for it to be cashed in. And it never is. That's the kind of disillusionment that breaks people. But it doesn't have to. Because that's also the exact point where clarity can begin. When you finally stop waiting for the world to be fair, you start seeing it for what it really is. You stop filtering reality through what you think it should be, and start working with what it actually is. And from there, you can begin to shape it, not with anger, but with precision. This shift is subtle, but life-changing. It's the difference between saying, they should treat me better, and asking, what do I need to control so they don't have the choice? It's the difference between blaming and building, between sulking in a corner and stepping into the center of the room, not to be liked, but to be recognized. Let's be honest. Most people don't want power. They want comfort with a sense of dignity. They want to be able to say, I did things the right way, even if it means losing. Because then, at least they get to feel morally superior. But Machiavelli would argue, if your values leave you powerless, isolated, or dependent, are they really serving you? Or are they serving the people who benefit from your weakness? Think of every system you operate in: work, family, social groups. Do you honestly believe these spaces reward the most just, the most honest, the most? Do they reward those who simply do good? Or do they reward those who understand timing, influence, and positioning? Do they lift up the ones who quietly endure unfairness? Or the ones who know how to use it to their advantage? This isn't cynicism, it's preparation. Machiavelli understood that power doesn't care if you're a good person. It only respects strength, influence, and control. That doesn't mean abandoning your principles. It means understanding that the game is bigger than your personal code, and playing it in a way that doesn't get you eaten. Here's what makes fairness so insidious. It feels good. It flatters your ego. It makes you think you're taking the high road, when in reality, you're just standing still. It keeps you righteous but powerless, passionate but paralyzed. The world keeps spinning, and you're there, morally correct, but completely invisible. But imagine if you redirected that same energy. Instead of saying, "This isn't fair," you said, "What's the angle here?" Instead of resenting someone who broke the rules and won, you studied how they did it, so you could use it, evolve it, outdo it. That's when you stop being a pawn and start becoming a player. You begin to see how people signal fairness not to uphold it, but to weaponize it. They'll accuse you of being unfair the second you step out of line. Not because you've wronged them, but because your independence threatens their control. And if you don't catch it, you'll fold. You'll apologize. You'll shrink back into the little cage they built for you. The one labeled nice, loyal, harmless. Machiavelli would tell you, don't defend yourself. Don't try to prove you're fair. Just move forward. Play smarter. Let them scream. Let them point fingers. That noise means they've lost control. And nothing unsettles manipulators more than someone who doesn't flinch. Let's go deeper. Fairness gives people a sense of entitlement. If I do X, I should get Y. But when life doesn't deliver, resentment grows. And resentment is like a slow rot. It makes you bitter, passive-aggressive, waiting for people to recognize your worth instead of forcing them to. You don't need recognition. You need leverage. Leverage doesn't come from following the rules blindly. It comes from understanding them so well that you know when and how to break them without consequences. You don't build leverage by being agreeable. You build it by becoming irreplaceable, unpredictable, uncomfortable to challenge. And that kind of strength doesn't grow in the comfort zone of fairness. It grows in the arena of reality, where stakes are high, masks come off, and only those who adapt survive. So if you're stuck in a cycle of saying, "But I did everything right," pause. Who told you that doing everything right guarantees success? Who planted that idea in your mind? And more importantly, who benefits from you believing it? Because the more obsessed you are with being right, the less energy you have to be effective. The more you chase fairness, the less you chase opportunity. And the more you believe people owe you something, the more predictable and controllable you become. Let's take a different approach. What if you replaced the word fair with useful? Instead of asking, "Was that fair?" ask, "Was that useful?" It's a colder question, yes, but it's a clearer one. It shifts your focus from emotion to outcome, from justice to strategy. It doesn't mean abandoning your principles. It means not letting your principles become your prison. Most people misunderstand ruthlessness. They think it's about crushing others. But true Machiavellian ruthlessness is about liberating yourself from illusions, from emotional traps, from psychological chains that keep you playing a role someone else wrote for you. The good worker, the loyal friend, the patient partner. These labels are rewarded only as long as they serve the people in power. The moment you step outside the script, the applause stops. That's when you realize it was never about fairness. It was about control. And here's the twist. Once you stop needing fairness, you become freer than everyone else. You're not waiting on apologies. You're not stuck replaying betrayals. You're not bound by the idea that you must suffer now to be rewarded later. You live in the present, you act in the present, you extract results in the present. Fairness is a delay tactic. Power is immediate. Some will say, "But what kind of world do we live in if no one believes in fairness?" And that's a valid fear. But let me ask you, how has your belief in fairness served you so far? Has it protected you? Elevated you? Given you influence? Or has it made you easier to ignore? This doesn't mean you become a tyrant. It means you become unshakable. You stop being swayed by sob stories, guilt tactics, or moral pressure. You operate with clarity. You make moves based on what works, not what should work. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, you start shifting from someone who reacts to the world to someone who designs it. You begin to live with a calm detachment, not because you don't feel anything, but because you no longer beg for outcomes. You stop being emotionally hijacked by every unfair result. Instead, you learn to observe, you learn to wait, and you learn to move when it truly matters, not when someone provokes you. And that's the moment real transformation begins. The world doesn't suddenly become fairer. You simply become sharper. The same people who once ignored you begin to watch you. Those who dismissed you Start adjusting to your presence. Because whether they like it or not, you're no longer playing their game. You're playing yours. And when you finally start playing your own game, something powerful happens. You stop explaining yourself. You stop arguing. You stop trying to convince people why you deserve better. You no longer wait for permission. You move, you act, you create pressure, and even if people can't describe it, they can feel it. This is what happens when you step out of the fairness trap. You become unpredictable, not chaotic, not unstable, just unreadable. Because you're no longer reacting to someone else's idea of right and wrong. You're guided by what positions you best, by what advances your aims, by what strengthens your influence. And as Machiavelli would say, that's the moment you become valuable, not just to yourself, but to anyone watching. Because in a world full of hesitation, complaining, and collapse, the one who moves forward anyway becomes the center of gravity. People start to orbit around you. But let's be brutally honest, that shift isn't easy. Letting go of fairness isn't just a mindset shift, it's an identity shift. It means killing the part of you that wants to be seen as good. The part that hopes patience will be rewarded. The part that believes silent suffering earns respect. It doesn't. In fact, it earns you something far worse: invisibility. People stop listening, not because you're wrong, but because you've become predictable. You always forgive. You always take the high road. You always wait. You always say yes. That's not virtue. That's stagnation wearing moral clothing. Let's imagine someone betrays you. They cut you out of a deal. They throw you under the bus. They steal your credit. If your first instinct is to complain or hope they feel guilty, you've already misunderstood the battlefield. That's not strategy. That's emotional venting. And Machiavelli would laugh, not because it's weak, but because it's ineffective. Instead, ask yourself, how do I make this betrayal cost them something? Not through rage, through consequences. How do I make sure crossing me has a price? Not so people fear you, but so they never forget you. Because real influence isn't built by being liked. It's built by being felt. People remember those who made them hesitate. And inside that hesitation, your power is born. You don't gain that by demanding fairness. You gain it by becoming the kind of person who doesn't flinch when it's denied. And here's the paradox. Once you stop needing fairness, people start treating you better. Why? Because they sense you're not desperate for validation. You're not emotionally baited. You're not waiting for their approval. And that kind of self-possession, it commands respect. It even creates fear. Because they can't use the usual tricks anymore. They can't shame you. They can't guilt you. They can't trap you with their moral games. You've stepped outside their framework, and it shakes them. It makes them uncertain. And uncertainty is the first step toward power. Because now, they are the ones trying to figure you out. Sold to you is about control. The idea of fairness sounds noble, but it's often used by those in power to pacify those without it. It whispers, don't push back, don't disrupt, don't challenge, just wait your turn. But when that turn never comes, what then? Do you keep waiting, or do you flip the board? Machiavelli would advise you to flip it. Not with chaos, but with calculation. When someone crosses you, don't explode, go silent. Silence unsettles people more than rage. Rage is readable. Silence is a black box. When you don't react the way they expect, they lose their script. And when they're off script, you're in control. Same with opportunities. If you see someone advancing through favoritism or manipulation, don't complain about it. Learn from it. Analyze what influence they're using. Study the social chessboard. Who are they aligning with? What doors are being opened for them? Because once you understand the game, you can play it cleaner, sharper, with fewer weaknesses to exploit. Remember this: people expect the fair person to be passive, predictable, forgiving. The moment you disrupt that expectation, not with cruelty, but with composure, you change how they talk about you when you're not in the room. And that's where real power lives. Let's make this real. There's someone in your life right now taking advantage of your fairness. They know you'll pick up the slack. They know you won't fight back. They know you'll keep showing up even when they don't. And if you're honest, you're not even mad at them. You're mad at yourself for allowing it. So stop allowing it. Don't confront them. Don't announce a change. Just start operating differently. Let them feel the shift. Let them feel the distance. Let them guess why it happened. The most effective moves are the ones no one sees coming. You owe it to yourself to become less predictable, to stop explaining every decision, to stop justifying your boundaries. Because every time you explain, you weaken them. You tell people your lines are negotiable, that you can be talked out of your standards, that you can be guilted back into the role of the fair one. And the truth is, no one respects the person who can always be negotiated with. You want respect? Be hard to read. Be even harder to sway. Show them that your energy is no longer up for grabs. Let's go even deeper. The moment you start replacing fairness with leverage, everything changes. You stop saying, "They should appreciate me," and start asking, "What happens if they don't?" You begin to move from emotional logic to strategic logic. And that shift terrifies people who depended on your emotions to manipulate you. They'll say you've changed. They'll say you've become distant, cold, arrogant. What they really mean is, they can't control you anymore. Good. That's the cost of evolution. You don't get to keep your old comfort and gain new power. You don't get to be agreeable and untouchable. You have to trade something. And trading your obsession with fairness might be the highest return decision you'll ever make. Because once you're no longer attached to being seen as fair, you can become something far more dangerous, effective. And in the world Machiavelli saw so clearly, where perception rules, alliances shift, and power is currency, being effective is what separates the manipulated from the master, the forgotten from the feared, the noble victim from the quiet king. That choice is yours. But don't wait too long. The game is already being played around you. And the longer you cling to fairness, the longer you sit on the sidelines, watching others bend the rules, while you keep playing by the ones they've already discarded. There's a moment, quiet, subtle, when something clicks inside you. When you stop looking at the world through the lens of right and wrong and start seeing it through the lens of cause and effect. It doesn't make you heartless. It makes you dangerous. In a different way. Because now, you don't argue. You don't plead. You observe. You adapt. You respond not to emotion, but to advantage. This is what most people never teach you. Because the people who benefit from your belief in fairness, they want you tame. They want you agreeable, predictable, easy to map. Because if you're always the one trying to do the right thing, they always know where you'll stand. And if they know where you'll stand, they know how to trap you. But once you decide fairness isn't your compass anymore, they lose control. They don't know what you'll tolerate. They don't know what you'll walk away from. They don't know where you'll strike. And that mystery, that's power. you start to move through life like a shadow. Not loud, not needy, but with weight. You make fewer moves, but each one lands harder. People begin to notice that you don't ask for fairness. You create outcomes. You shift the energy in rooms without speaking. And those who once dismissed you, they start to watch carefully. Let's be honest. The real game isn't fair. It never was. The sooner you accept that, the sooner you stop feeling betrayed by it. You stop looking for justice in places it was never promised. You stop expecting decency from those who see your hope as a tool. And maybe this sounds bleak to you, but it's not. It's clarifying. Because the moment you stop chasing fairness, you finally free yourself to chase power. With a clean mind. A calm one. One that isn't cluttered by disappointment. One that isn't reeling from betrayal. One that simply asks, greater than, what is the game? Who is playing it better than me? And what am I willing to become to win it? That last question is the one most people avoid. They'd rather be liked than effective, rather be accepted than respected. But deep down, they want power. They're just afraid of what it might cost. Here's what Machiavelli knew. Everything has a price. Fairness has a price. Power has a price. But only one of them pays you back. And if you're willing to let go of the story you've been told, that good things come to those who wait, that merit always wins, that fairness is the highest ideal, you might find something far more real in its place. Control. The ability to shape your path without asking anyone's permission. The clarity to see people for who they are, not who they pretend to be. The strength to walk away when your worth is ignored, not because it's unfair, but because it's inefficient. That's what most people don't get. Fairness is inefficient. You waste time explaining, justifying, trying to make people understand. You think if you're just patient enough, kind enough, rational enough, they'll come around. But they won't. Not because they can't. Because they don't have to. The world doesn't move for explanations. It moves for pressure. And pressure doesn't come from being fair. It comes from being felt. When people feel your absence more than your presence, you have leverage. When your silence makes them nervous, you have leverage. When they start recalculating their moves because they know you're no longer playing nice, you have leverage. But you can't get there if you're still chasing some invisible scoreboard that says you're winning because you were right. There is no scoreboard. There's only perception, only power, only leverage. This doesn't mean you abandon your values. It means you hold them privately, strategically. You don't wave them like a flag. You don't beg people to recognize them. You live them quietly. And you use them when they benefit your position, not when they sabotage it. And when someone crosses the line, you don't explain why it was wrong. You make them feel why it was a mistake. That's the kind of power Machiavelli respected. Cold, silent, unforgettable. Because here's the final truth. The world doesn't reward the most fair. It rewards the most adaptable. The ones who can look at a broken system and say, all right, I see what this is. Let me figure out how to win anyway. The ones who can navigate corruption without being corrupted. The ones who can play the villain when necessary, not out of malice, but out of clarity. And no one can adapt faster than someone who's let go of how things should be and started mastering how things are. So take a breath. Think about the last time you felt overlooked, underpaid, disrespected. Ask yourself, not what was fair, but what was missed? What didn't I see? What could I have changed? What signal did I send that told the world I was safe to ignore? Posture, your tone, your boundaries? Start practicing discomfort. Start learning how to sit with people's disapproval without flinching. Start becoming the version of yourself that can't be played. Because once you do that, you become the exception. You're no longer one of the many people complaining about the rules. You're the one rewriting them in silence. While they're too busy crying about how unfair the game is, you become what Machiavelli respected most. Not a loud idealist, but a quiet architect. The architect of your own power. And that's the shift most people never make. They want to change their circumstances, but they don't want to change their identity. They want power without pressure, respect without risk, control without consequence. But that's not how the game works. The game rewards those who are willing to become unrecognizable. Not to others, to themselves. Because shedding your attachment to fairness isn't just a tactical move. It's a personal death. You bury the version of yourself that was waiting to be seen, to be understood, to be rewarded for simply being good. You bury the inner child who thought if you just followed the rules, someone would eventually hand you the prize. And in its place, you build something colder. Not cruel, just clearer. You start seeing relationships through a different lens. Who is benefiting from your compliance? Who is initiating your sense of virtue to keep you docile? Who is playing both sides, smiling at your loyalty while aligning with someone else behind closed doors? You start asking harder questions. What do people assume about me that makes them feel safe taking advantage? What signal am I sending that makes me the default scapegoat? The emotional caretaker, the one who always absorbs the blow. And when you find the answers, you don't confront them. You don't give some big dramatic speech. You simply stop playing the role. Let them notice. Let them feel it. Power is in the withdrawal, not the explanation. Because here's what people never tell you. Fairness makes you explain yourself over and over. And the more you explain, the more you dilute your presence. You make yourself small, trying to be understood, trying to be liked, trying to be seen as just. But people don't respect explanations. They respect results. They respect the person who doesn't ask for anything, but gets everything. They respect the person who can walk away with no flinch, no noise, no closure. That's what shakes them. That's what repositions you in their mind. Not as someone asking for fairness, but as someone who doesn't need it. And when you don't need it, they start offering it. Not because they're kind, but because they don't want to lose you. Because they've now seen what it looks like when you stop giving a damn about being fair. When you stop handing out your energy like it's free. When you start treating your presence like currency, and they realize they've been overdrafting your account for years, you'll know you've reached this place when you start saying less. When you're no longer trying to prove your worth. When you don't correct people's misunderstandings unless it benefits you. When you stop defending your boundaries and start enforcing them. When someone disrespects you and you don't even react, you just disappear. Or better yet, you reposition. So now they need you, but can't reach you. That's not petty. That's Machiavellian. That's power disguised as distance. And you'll notice something else. The more you move like this, the more people test you. They'll poke, prod, say things to provoke a reaction. Not because they want to fight, but because they need to measure you. Because your silence is unsettling. Your refusal to play fair ruins their script. And when they realize they can't guilt you, can't bait you, can't decode you, you become untouchable. And it's lonely, yes, because fairness makes people feel bonded. We're in this together, they'll say. But what they really mean is, don't rise above me. Stay here with me. Suffer with me. Let's wait for justice together. But you're not waiting anymore. You've got things to build, wars to win, rooms to own. You've realized that your life is too short to be spent explaining your pain to people who only understand power. Too short to keep giving chances to those who use fairness as a smokescreen for manipulation. Too short to keep clinging to a code that doesn't cash out. You've stepped into a different space now. One where your energy isn't reactionary. It's intentional. One where your moves aren't emotional, they're surgical. One where your value isn't based on how well you followed the rules, but on how boldly you rewrote them. This isn't about becoming cruel, it's about becoming crisp. Crisp in your boundaries, crisp in your decisions, crisp in your detachment. So when the world says, "But that's not fair," you don't even blink. You've stopped playing that game. You're not looking for fairness anymore. You're looking for leverage. And you're not interested in sympathy. You're interested in sovereignty. Because Machiavelli would tell you, fairness is for the governed. Leverage is for the ruler. And you're no longer waiting to be ruled.